Good evening and welcome. I'd like to call to order our Lucan Biddulph Council meeting for Tuesday, January the 13th. I would like to acknowledge that I am an ally of Indigenous peoples. The township of Lucan Biddulph is located on the treaty and territorial and ancestral lands of many Indigenous peoples and is covered by several Upper Canada treaties. We honor and respect the history, languages, and cultures of the diverse Indigenous peoples that call Lucan Biddulph home. We endeavor to unlearn colonial mindsets and practices and to grow in knowledge. As we build meaningful relationships, we recognize contributions of Indigenous peoples and respect their leadership and partnership in shaping and strengthening our community. We acknowledge historic and ongoing injustices that Indigenous peoples endure in Canada, and we affirm our commitment to honoring Indigenous voices, nations, and cultures, and to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Okay, so Happy New Year. Tonight's meeting is the first in 2026. Can't believe 2026. So you will notice that I am wearing something new, the chain of office. Our reeves and mayors in Lucan and Biddulph have historically not worn chains of office. Chains of office date back to medieval times, and they symbolize allegiance and service to community. The warden of Middlesex County wears a chain, and many of my colleagues across the county and province wear one. Our staff designed one for the mayor to wear last year, and so I bring it out to start the new year. It is a beautiful piece, and it speaks to our history. You can see the shamrocks, the crest for the county is on it. There's a tribute with Canadian flags and Ontario flag. There's reference to our agricultural roots and to our work ethic. So I wear it proudly, and it will be a piece now that all mayors in the future will wear with the honor of the office. So thanks to staff for designing it and making it a piece that the office of the mayor, council, and our residents can be proud of. So we enter conference season because Roma begins this weekend. Councillor Hodgins and I are attending, and I know that we both look forward to the education sessions and having conversations with colleagues from across the province, learning from them and bringing back ideas to Lucan Biddulph. And we also look forward to the opportunity to meet with provincial government representatives to further advance priorities for our community. So I cannot let tonight pass by not recognizing our former employee, Jason Boyer. Jason was our Parks and Rec manager from 2013 to 2018. And it was just before Christmas that we learned of the tragic event that Jason and his family were involved in. It was a catastrophic traffic collision that took place near Timmins. And I do think that they were on their way home to southwestern Ontario for the holidays. Tragically, Jason's wife, Nicole, and their two children, Zoe and Piper, were killed. Jason works in Dryden now, and Ron has reached out to the CAO there to extend our condolences. And we have made a donation on behalf of Lucan Biddulph in memory of Jason's family. But I know that you join me in expressing our deepest sympathies to Jason. Not all of us around the Horseshoe worked with Jason. Staff, of course, were incredibly close with him. And it shouldn't be lost that 7 weeks ago, he was passing through the community and just happened to stop in the office and caught up with our staff. And I happened to be in the office that day, and it was great to hear about the success that he is experiencing, and then to hear about his girls and how they have grown and what they were experiencing. So we do express our sympathies to Jason, and really our hopes are that he is well supported by family, friend, and colleagues in what can only be an unimaginable tragedy. So we do have an addition to the agenda, and that is item 16.5, and it is just the bylaw for the drainage works for the Damon Drain for 2025. So I don't think we need a motion to accept that, right?
No.
We do not need to go into closed session, but we do have to move into a public meeting for drainage. And I do need a mover and a seconder, that the drainage consideration meeting to review the engineer's report for the Damon Drive, Damon Drain, 2025 be opened at 5 minutes after 6. If I can get a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Regan and Councillor Westman. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, so joining us tonight is Mike DeVos from Spreet Associates. And it's great to have you with us in person. Mike, Happy New Year, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. The report before you was prepared in accordance with Section 78 of the Drainage Act, which is to deal with improvements to an existing municipal drain. The Damon Drain consists of a relatively short stretch of open channel at the bottom, and then about 4,000 meters of agricultural farm tile in the areas of concession 7 to 9 in the area of Mooresville Drive. The outlet of the Damon Drain is into the Mitchell Drain, and it would head southwest downstream, crossing some of the roads down further. The Mitchell Drain comes in at that point as well as a closed drain, so it's the congruence of several areas. We are currently working on another project for the Mitchell Drain, so that will come relatively shortly. There was discussion through the process that the O'Shea Drain, which is the drain to the north of the Damon, would be better served to have a new outlet into the lower part of the Damon. So that is what is being proposed at this time, and the Mitchell Drain report coming forward, which the O'Shea Drain is part of, will show that as well. So we've shown that on the drawings, and we've designed and assessed the lower portion of the open channel in that regard. So there are some owners that previously weren't involved with the Damon that would now be involved with the Damon financially because their water will use the very lowest portion of the Damon open channel. We did hold meetings with the owners at the beginning of the project, and their requests were that the existing drain be improved to today's standard that would be provided by the Ministry of Ag and Food, or even larger, due to the fact that there's a number of areas along this drain that have steep gradients, and the excess water that the drain can't handle moves fairly fast and causes erosion. So that we did investigation, came back with several alternatives. We looked at variations of design standards as well as variations of replacing the entire drain in parts versus twinning the drain and trying to keep the existing drain. The existing drain was built in roughly 1977. In smaller tiles, it's not always that economical. You don't save a lot to try to keep some of the smaller pipes. So that was sort of right from the beginning what we were looking at. But through some of the conversations and once looking at the costs and the cost savings, the landowners chose to replace the entire drain. So this report provides for the replacement of the old Damon drain. It was also discussed and requested by the owners that the old Damon drain be abandoned in a lot of areas and not replaced. So it would become a private pipe for the owners to continue to use as their own pipes. So it's no longer municipal infrastructure. It becomes private infrastructure, but it would still be in the ground. The lower part of the Damon drain had tiles on both sides of an old ditch. So the new drain would be put up between them. And then once you get into the upper reaches of the watershed, it would go beside the old one. We would be connecting some of the water in, especially some areas where you have branches or large areas coming in. You'd want to connect the water to the new drain so that the new drain can handle it. There will be included as well, we have to cross Highway 23 in two places. Those are MTO crossings, and they require through the MTO requirements, geotechnical reports, as well as settlement monitoring. That's relatively new in this particular area. It was always a requirement, say for the 401 or for railways and things like that. But in this particular area, they are now asking for that. That is a fairly costly item. It is assessed to the entity that's asked for it, in this case, the MTO, but it does drive the cost up for crossing the road. The road crossings themselves will be replaced. There will be no pipe left under the highway. And so the old pipes will be grouted full of cement. There will also be catch basins put along the drain to replace the old catch basins to try and put as much water into the pipe as we can. It's still considered a low flow design. There still will be many rain events that will exceed the capacity of the pipe system, and surface water will need to go downstream over land. But the frequency and the duration of that flow will be less with the bigger design. We're also including what we refer to as wascobs, which are basically oversized berms to try to not just put water into the pipe, but actually hold water back when the pipe can't take it. So trying to pond water, slow it down, let it use the pipe once the pipe can catch up. So hold it long enough. It won't hold it too long to cause issue with the crops, but it'll hold it back long enough to provide some additional assistance. I think at that point I'll stop and open up questions.
Thank you for that. So I'm going to open it up to the public first to see if if anybody from the public has any questions or comments at this stage. I know that there was a number of meetings held, so hopefully questions were addressed then, but okay, seeing none, then to council. Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I may, so on like the report on page 10 talks about the grants and that the municipality will apply for the grant. I'm just wondering if you're the right person to ask or not, sort of how traditionally, how successful are we with grants just to reduce the costs, and what is the percentage traditionally of covering those costs?
The granting system, it's called ADIP. It's run by the Ministry of Ag and Food, and it supplies grants for all projects that are eligible and for the particular items within a report that are eligible. Sometimes they have certain rules and regulations that some things are covered and some things aren't. On a tile drain like this, they will cover granting up to what they consider their design standard. So in this case, that's 1.5 inches for them. The owners have requested a 2-inch drain for the whole thing, and then a little part of it a little bit bigger than a 2-inch. So that difference in cost we have to identify in the report, and we have to show it separately so that when the grants are applied for, the ministry can look at that easily and say, okay, here's the grantable part, here's the non-grantable part, and it becomes an easier process. But all projects that are submitted that are deemed to be eligible, now they'll review it to make sure that what we're showing is eligible and get it, will receive that grant. It's 1/3 of the cost, but it's only granted to properties that are deemed to be agricultural. It's an agricultural grant. So if there's residential properties or there's roads or there's industrial properties, they're not eligible to receive that. And we've identified that. The ministry used to put it in the engineer's hands to determine what is agricultural, but back in about 2005, they revised that, and now they make the calculation whether it's agricultural, and it's based on your farm tax rebate. If the property is receiving the farm tax rebate, it is considered agricultural and eligible.
Got that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Hodgins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. Just wanted to ask about the settlement monitoring kind of being a new requirement from the MTO. And is that just a temporary thing like during construction and after construction, or is that in place for a longer duration?
Yeah, it's not that long after, but there is a period after. It's not quite as aggressive as it would be on the 401 or on a railway. I think their cost in this case is about $40,000. They do have to go in and set up points to set up to monitor specific points. And then they gotta shoot the before, during and after the works to ensure that things aren't moving. So it's, you know, it's just something that on a Highway 23, 2-lane road that they didn't used to require. But now they are starting to require that.
Okay, thank you. And just with, it seems it's like a pretty big project, I think like, the cost over $1 million and, about 4 kilometer of pipe. Is there a timeline, when this might start and the approximate duration for this project?
We do not typically put in the tender, the exact dates. We usually let the contractor put in it. We get the best pricing that way. Typically with projects in this time of year, we're looking at late this coming season or later in the year. That doesn't mean that a contractor, if he's working in the area and he's moving his equipment around, and they'll have a lot of equipment to move on a project like this, if they have another project down the road, they may decide to do the two of them at the same time, and they'll shift their schedules as long as it fits within like what they've submitted. And so my estimation, it would be the later half of 2026 is when it would get built. The duration varies greatly on the contractor. Some contractors don't have as much equipment as others. And there are a few contractors out there that could do it in half the time. It could take up to a month, or it could take a couple weeks, depending upon who would get it and how much equipment they decide to move into the site.
Okay, thank you very much.
Counselor Westman.
Yeah, I just thought about the two crossings on 23 highway there. So would they have to like dig it up and put in new culvert equipment and all that? Because I'm just thinking about traffic and how it diverts and tends to come down roads we'd rather heavy traffic didn't come down.
Yeah, these two road crossings are being done by Jack and Bore. So there will be no disturbance to the surface. They will video and grout the old pipe. We will be doing that actually before the work, because we want to make sure if there is something they find underneath that's connected to the old pipe, then it becomes a little bit more complicated for them. But generally, we're able to make it work without disturbance to the pavement. So we are still waiting with the MTO. We have to have a permit to enter the property, and then we have to have a permit to build the drain. And it's a lot more paperwork and a lot more waiting for approvals with an MTO rather than a county or a municipality. And in this case, we are still waiting for the approval to get on the property to VACX the fiber optics. And in one of the two crossings, there's a gas main. So we're still waiting for the encroachment permit to be able to enter the property to do that. And so hopefully they get the permits relatively out soon so that we can keep this thing moving. By the time the geotech report comes out and then we get approval, that's going to take time too. So hopefully the delay isn't longer than what I fear it could be.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments from council? Okay, so that we do have a recommended motion in front of us that the drainage report for the Damon Drive 2025 as prepared by Spreet and Associates dated October 31st, 2025 be received and adopted, and that the first sitting of the Court of Revision on behalf of the Damon Drive 2025 be, I know, why do I keep saying drive? Damon Drain, I don't know. I think we need to name something, I don't know. Anyways, the Damon Drain 2025 be scheduled for February 17th, 2025 at 6 p.m. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Councillor Westman and Councillor Hodgins. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming, Mike. Appreciate it. And to the landowners for attending as well. If I can get a mover and a seconder so that we can close our drainage consideration meeting at 6:19 and reconvene our regular meeting. Councillor Hodgins and Councillor Westman, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Awesome. Thanks. Great. Thank you. Yeah. Happy New Year. Yeah, drive safely. Okay, we have two delegations tonight, and I am happy to welcome back Joe Windsor from Middlesex County, the Director of Human Services. Joe and his team joined us in the fall, and they're back to present some more information to us. So thank you for coming, and I'll turn it over to you, Joe.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Mayor. And yes, we were here not too long ago. And, first I want to thank your council for inviting us back or allowing us to come back and for really helping build what this new presentation is about, because you had some really fantastic questions the last time I was here. And so we wanted to make sure that, we hopefully answer some during that presentation, but updated the presentation with some more information. So with me today, I've actually brought Elle Lane, who is our Manager of Human Services, and Danica Flores, who is our Community Navigator, who joined me the last time. So I'm going to try to keep it as brief as possible because some of this information was already shared at the last meeting. So some of the slides that are the same, I will probably flip through, but we'll go through what we have today. So if we can go to the first slide. So what we want to talk about first is, what does rural homelessness look like in our communities? And there are four main topics of homelessness that individuals face. So chronic homelessness are individuals that have multiple barriers, that are just can't seem to maintain their current residence for whatever reason that it might be. So they might have tried someplace and then was unsuccessful and is back now on the street or couch surfing or in one of our community programs through Middlesex County. Episodic is your individuals that have, the first or second time. Could be a fire that happened, could be lack of heat, hydro, or it could be, typically a one and done situation. Then we move into the transitional housing, and some individuals that have been either through the chronic or episodic paths could move into our transitional housing, which is for supports for just stabilizing prior to moving into whatever their new apartment or new living arrangements might be. And then the biggest piece, which we do see probably an increase the most in Middlesex County, is our at-risk of homelessness. And at-risk of homelessness can mean a lot of different things. When it comes to food insecurity, the cost of food is going up across the board. Increase in rental amounts, utilities, repairs for and maintenance for their places. So costs across the board have been increasing, and so what we have seen is a lot more individuals have be coming to us around the at-risk of homelessness piece. The other piece around that is that there's the difference between visible homelessness and hidden homelessness. So visible homelessness is when you are seeing individuals living unsheltered, so living under a tree, living in a forest, living under a bridge. That really obviously visibleness of the community. Where we see in the county probably more increases is the hidden homelessness. So individuals living in cars, living in trailers, living at a friend's house and couches and couch surfing. Some of the main barriers that we our homeless individuals are facing in the county is transportation is one of our biggest ones. Lack of funding. So, for somebody on Ontario Works, the maximum they can get in a month is $733. Not a lot of money. 343 of that is for their basic needs, and $390 is for their shelter costs. I'm not sure if you guys know where to find a place for $390, but that is very few and far between. So finding suitable accommodations for our individuals that we're supporting definitely causes some challenges. Then on top of that, some of our individuals are dealing with poor credit checks. So they find a place that they may be able to stay, but landlords are doing credit checks and then they're not being approved. The last piece is just lack of affordable housing across Middlesex County. And affordable housing is different from your community or social housing. It is kind of that next step between your social community housing, your transitional housing, then you can get into affordable housing and then move into market rent places. Go to the next page. So this slide was direct from what our the council from last time when I came was some of the data, and so I wanted to make sure to come back and share some of this. So this data is part of our 2024 PIC count, which is a point in time count. The individuals that the numbers that are on this document, though, do match around what we are seeing still currently. So hot off the press, I got our final numbers from our MAP, which is the Middlesex Accommodations Program. We had 73 individuals in 2025 that we supported through that program. So the numbers that are on here are still relatively the same. We have seen some successes, obviously, as we've moved through some of our programming. You will see that the average age is 39, but the oldest age is 71, and that is also another thing that we are seeing is an increase in seniors that are facing homelessness or at risk of homelessness. Some of the top reasons for homelessness is the income, lack of affordable housing, relationship breakdown, so it could be with family, friends, or partners, and also conflicts with landlords. The income sources, Ontario Works and ODSP, the Ontario Disability Support Program, CPP, what could be CPP disability or CPP pension, and EI, which is the employment insurance benefit. But also, which I wanted to highlight, is that it's also employment income, because individuals, it's not just individuals that are on social assistance, it is individuals with employment income that are struggling as well. And so just some data around the Middlesex Accommodations Program. So since its inception in 2021, we have supported over 250 individuals. In 2024, we had 77 individuals. It says 63 so far, but I did get a number today, which was 73 in total. And then we do have a consistent wait list. So it does vary depending on the time of year. In wintertime, it seems to increase, where in the summertime, it does seem to decrease a little bit. So to support some of the data that we are working through is the HIFIS system, which is the Homeless Individuals and Family Information System. It has now been completely implemented across the county. Our community navigators, so Danica, who is with us, and then Veronica, who is our other community navigator, YOU, Strathroy, WRC, which is the Women's Rural Resource Center, and CMHA, Thames Valley Addiction Mental Health Services. They all are in HIFIS, and we are working together, which is basically a lack of a better way of a database to help support individuals and being able to make sure that we're supporting them along the same path and we're not duplicating work across each of our different organizations. Currently, we have at the time when I created this document, which was around the end of November, so we had 66% of those individuals were male. Average age was 44 with 10 over the age of 50. And 33% of them would benefit from supportive housing. And so that means that we've completed what's called a VI SPDAT, which gives us an acuity level. And the higher the acuity level, the more supports that an individual need. A lower acuity means maybe more of a lighter touch, and they can maybe find something a little more sustainable quicker. So we are seeing that some of the individuals that we are supporting definitely will need some of that supportive housing as we continue to move through. This next one, the one about the programs, I'm not going to go too deep into it because it is something that I talked about the last time. I will highlight again, though, that we do have the Whatever It Takes fund. So if you are hearing from your residents that they are struggling with rental arrears, utility arrears, etc., we will. There is funding that's available for individuals. We can help with first and last month's rent as well. I did add on the bottom of this page, though, to talk about a little bit about the Middlesex Homeless Action Committee. And that is just to show that, it's not just our department that is working through this program or the issues of homelessness in the county. We do have other organizations that we meet with on a monthly basis to really make sure that we review and develop any of our processes and make sure that we're meeting the needs of the homeless in our community. All right, the next one is around the extreme weather response. Again, it was pretty much the same as what from the last time I visited. But just as a reminder that there is supports for individuals when it is extreme weather response, whether it be right now when it's very cold or in the middle of summer when it's hot, because at both times, you know, individuals that are unsheltered can be impacted by the weather. The bottom there, I will say just that we do have a new outreach email, so it's outreach@middlesex.ca. And I will share that a little bit later in the presentation as well. The next piece is, so housing is now under my portfolio, so it has definitely been a little bit of a learning curve for myself, but wanted to bring it and talk about it and what it is that we need to do through housing in Middlesex County. And one of the big things is build on the definition of roles. So what belongs to the City of London as our CMSM, the county, and what does local municipalities, where do we each play a role into that? And so 2026, we're going to really be focusing on that and helping define that between the different levels so that we're all kind of working in the same direction. We're going to do a full inventory review of what housing is already provided in the county, whether it be affordable, whether it be community housing, whether it just be market rents that might be available. Ensuring that we have access to all available funding. So that is one thing. So having Elle join us, she has a very deep understanding of the housing and homelessness side of things, which, you know, part of the housing side, there are different fundings that we may be eligible for. And so we want to make sure that, again, we have the right data to support what fundings that we move forward. And that's where HIFIS is going to support. And so, you know, I'm looking forward to 2026 to making sure we're getting all available funding. And we want to make sure that we are shovel ready. So if funding does come available, like the Build Canada Homes that's out right now, we want to make sure that we know where we want to build in the county and that we can support lower municipalities where we support and where the City of London is to support as the CMSM. Just generally what do we need, and I've kind of covered it a little bit, is we need affordable housing, community/social housing, and supportive housing in the county. Currently, our wait list for the housing wait list is 248 individuals, and that list is maintained by the City of London through their Housing Access Centre. So, So I'm going to go quickly over this because this is why I came the last time, was actually to kind of launch our current program, which is the Connecting Journeys Home Within Community. So we have been, again, working through updating our website. At each of your desks there, I actually put two different documents. One is just the flyer that can be shared across any of your local areas, which does kind of indicate, you know, individuals that if you are in need or if you can identify somebody that may need some help, we can help. So the Middlesex Human Services. So on there, it's a direct phone line to our community navigators, our outreach email, our website, and then it's a QR code also that takes us directly to our website. So on there, you will see this is kind of some of that logo and slogan that we are trying to promote a little bit. So you'll see down at the bottom left, there's the Connecting Journeys name, and then those 5 houses. So you'll see that. And then the other document that I'll just share is the kind of some of the information I already went through on the earlier slide, but it is the point in time count and data highlights. So just again, we're trying to get out education for individuals to understand what does homelessness look like in Middlesex County. The next slide is the same as before. So again, it just talks about what our website is going to look like. It's already updated. And then the next slide is those promotional materials. So I don't know if I did hand out this the last time, so I wanted to make sure I did, but this is one of them. And we are in working with our communications department to create some of the postcards that we can provide to the community as well. Next slide is again, almost the same as before. We did add a few other things. So on there is our link to our website. And then again, the outreach supports, as we're trying to really promote that just over this time frame, especially because it's getting cold out again. We had a little bit of a reprieve last week, but now we're back at it. I'm not sure actually, Lucan, if you guys have much of a reprieve, because I know you guys have gotten a lot of snow over the last little bit. So that phone number, we wanted to have a direct line so that people didn't have to call the 434-7321 and then extension. So that 930-1012 is a direct line in. And then also the outreach at middlesex.ca. We want an easy thing that individuals can, or anybody can access our supports in the through our county. The last page is just what's next. Talked about some of this again last time. But one thing I think also came out of our conversation here was around the 24-hour services review. So we know that all of these services that we provide are right now 8:30 to 4:30. And so we are doing a review to see, is there a need for us to expand our services to being more of a 24/7 service? And how do we do that in the county, and where is the need, and what is that need? So. And lastly, I'll just put a plug in again that for the Housing Stability Action Plan, we will be coming back to the Lucan area once the community open houses have been determined on those dates. So we would love to hear from the community, as well as what making sure that, again, from their perspective, we're hitting the mark on how we're supporting individuals. And that is it. So available for any questions if anybody has any.
Great. Thank you very much, Joe, and appreciate the data update and all the information that you've shared. Questions from council? Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Joe, thank you. Just two questions. So can you really just briefly explain to me what supportive housing is?
Yep, supportive housing is more of that, I was gonna say, not light touch, where individuals can maintain their own place. Supportive housing would be having somebody like a community partner run it, like a CMHA. So they would be on site, living, or not living there, but working there 24 hours a day to be there to support any individuals that are living at that residence.
Right. Okay, I did have one other. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So for smaller municipalities, I'm just wondering, when you talk about the homelessness experiences, so what would be the most common type of homeless experience in a smaller community? And what would you be looking for? And I was wondering too, just to add to that, we talked about employment income and how people are just not making enough money. They could have 2-3 part-time jobs just to make enough. I know that exists. So, and I'm just wondering if that, and again, if they wanted to access those funds, I think you called it the whatever it takes fund. That's something they come through the community, through township, or they go right to you guys?
Great question. So, sorry, could you repeat your first question again?
No, I was just asking about for smaller communities.
Oh,
what's the most-
yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
So I would say that what we see is more of that hidden homelessness. So the individuals couch surfing, living with friends, or in precariously housed places. So living in trailers, living in barns, living in container, like shipping containers. Those are just some of the things that off the top of my head of some of the situations that we've seen throughout the county. To see really the visible homelessness, thankfully, knock on wood, we've been able to reach out and meet with those individuals and offer other supports and services. So with that outreach program in itself, it would be a community navigator and one of the CMHA workers that go out to those individuals and offer the supports there. So then the second piece with about the income, sorry, gonna have to read that question now for me.
So just, yeah.
The whatever it takes fund, sorry. Yeah, if you could, they can always reach out through here to your offices, but it would be coming directly to our office. So they can reach out to community navigators, which is communitynavigator@middlesex.ca. They can come to human services at middlesex.ca, or even the outreach at middlesex.ca. Really, any which way that they can connect with us at the county, we would then do an approval process through there. So it doesn't need to be somebody that is accessing Ontario Works, OW, or Ontario Works, ODSP, EI. It doesn't have to be somebody, it can be income earner. So somebody that has a full or part-time job, whatever it is, we will do a financial review and then make a determination if we're able to support.
Right, right. Thank you, Joe.
Yep.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
And like, I think, you touched on it, Joe, that to get to the county. So, I mean, if somebody came into the office, obviously our staff could connect, but the library too. If
Yes.
somebody went into the library, there's a connection there as well. So, any other questions or comments? Councillor Westman?
Yeah, so looking at the reasons for homelessness, one thing that kind of, I didn't see is mental health and addiction. So, you know, I've had some experience in my past with working at soup kitchen and the food banks in London and what have you. And a lot of the people that were making use of it had obvious issues with addiction and mental health issues and so on. So I want to assume that within this system, there is a link for them to be able to get support in that as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. So great question. Thank you. If you look at the one document, the point in time count, if you the bottom right, it does talk about health and wellness experiences, and one of the main ones was mental health issues. And so that is, so yes, we talked about challenges with landlords or relationship breakdowns, which really kind of can be in turn with other mental health or addiction issues. So through our supports, like through mental health, for mental health support, CMHA, Thames Valley Addiction Mental Health Services, both support mental health and addiction services.
Councillor Hodgins?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. Thanks again for joining us in the presentation and information. We just got a policy update from AMO today, just with all their advocacy work around homelessness and the pressures it puts on municipalities. And they noted that in rural communities, homelessness is growing like especially fast. It says more than 30% last year, homelessness grew in rural communities. I'm just wondering if we're seeing those trends in our rural areas as well. If we have, you talked about data and having that data, which is really good, important. Do we have data going back, and can we see, you know, is it trending? Is it getting worse? Like we're seeing across the rest of the province?
Yeah, so I can speak to, the last point in time count before 2024 was done in 2018, and there was 48 individuals that were on that list at that point. So you know, between 2018 and 2024, there was the increase from 48 to 60 and 68. So yes, we are seeing an increase with that. Again, where it goes to maybe not so much the visible homelessness in our areas, but definitely the risk of homelessness. So.
Okay, thank you. And I'm just wondering, are there things that like kind of all residents and individuals can do? Because I think a lot of people feel really passionately about this issue and want to know, you know, what can they do? Are there volunteer opportunities through the work that Middlesex County is doing that just regular people can do?
So not directly through us, we don't do any volunteering specific, but I would say reach out to your local food bank. So the Elsa Craig Food Bank, I know through your mayor that we've connected with another organization that is looking at opening a food bank in the community too. So there are some things going on right now, not directly through the county, but lots of opportunities like through your local Lions Club, et cetera, that you could definitely do some volunteer work there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Joe, you said that there on the City of London, there was 248 people on the wait list. Are those are just county, like the
Yeah.
county residents?
Yeah, so we've worked with the city to just clean that up a little bit, just to make sure that we are talking about our residents. So it is definitely 248 individuals, and that's not including any individuals that want to move to the county that may be on our list for any of our community or social housing that London Middlesex kind of works together for. So that is just Middlesex County residents.
No, I mean, I think that number is important for us to know because that is significant for our community for sure. But you touched on it. I think it's important to know, and you can correct me, but my understanding is if you're on that wait list and housing comes up, so a City of London resident could get housing in the county, and a county resident could get housing in the city. Depending on where they are in the list and when an opening comes, correct?
That's correct. So what it is that individuals have to identify what location they would like to go to. So it's not just a matter of like, oh, you're on the next list. Here's a spot available in Southeast London or, you know, down in Strathroy or wherever. So the individual has to identify where they want to. So I think it's 3 areas that they can choose.
I'm all over City of London, but here there's LMCH, or is that what you're talking about?
Oh, just how many locations can they specifically choose, like on their housing access list?
Oh, they can choose as many as they want.
I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
thought there was a limit to that, but so yeah, so it is a matter of that the individual does choose which locations that they want to go to, so.
So they do, I guess, they do indicate where they want to be.
Yes.
Which is good, because then you hope that they land in a place where they can find support and that they're not alien, like they're not alone, and that transportation is access to them. And then I guess, I mean, I think what we're going to see as the year goes on, as the work that you're going to do in our roles, determining what our roles are. But as a local municipality, what is it that we can do? I suspect that there will be growing pressures on the county and the local municipality to do more. You know, I've actively said over the years, you know, about we have to stay in our lane, because once we get out of our lane, you know, you're opening up that doorway to having to respond and do more. But as you know, the data that you presented, and of course, what I see, you know, in here at the county level, these pressures are growing. And even though housing is not a service area that local municipalities are responsible for, I can see those pressures mounting, and that there will be a need for us to get involved. And I guess my question in your crystal ball is, what do you think, what is it that we can do now? And how do you kind of see our role evolving?
Yeah, great question. Thank you through to you to the council. So I think, you know, my crystal ball is not super clear, but what my thought is and what kind of our goal is, as you said, is to really define that what is the role of the city through as a CMSM between that affordable housing and that social and community housing. Because if there is a gap there that us as a county and local municipalities, we should be stepping up, then we should really understand what that means. We do provide the city a lot of money, which is great, and they do provide a lot of services and supports to our individuals. But where I think where the gap is, I think is really around that supportive around the affordable housing. What does that look like? How do we get that out into the county a little bit more, and not affordable only, but supportive housing too? So I think it's really defining that. What I think, you know, just a couple of things I can think of off the top of my head for what local municipalities can do is just be ready. Find out where you have some land that might be available. Look at your policies around, you know, when you do grant more development in your communities. Think about, you know, can some of those things be affordable housing units that are included in that? So those are some of the things that, and, you know, when you're at AMO, I think, you know, always, you know, which I know you do a fantastic job of advocating for the county, just that continued that advocation around rural communities do need those supports as well.
Well, I do enjoy doing that. I always like to get, you know, I my ask in for the county and our local municipalities. But I mean, I think the thing is, unfortunately, we're not the only one that's telling that story and having that same ask. So at some point, you know, the province is going to have to come in and support our municipalities to help us. Obviously, we want our residents to stay in our municipalities, and we have to be able to provide whatever we can to keep them here, and as I say, I just see that role growing and growing. So.
And to that point, I'll just add that, you know, that is our goal as well, through Human Services is yeah, so some of our programming is, you know, close to Strathroy for the MAP program, but we do always try to work with that individual to get them back to their home community. Just because, yeah, that might be where the service is. If they want to be in the Lucan Biddulph area, we absolutely will always advocate and try to get them back into this area.
Well, I think, and not to just keep going on, but that is the one, there's many things, but the one thing about our relationship with the city is when it comes to our social services and our housing is being able to work with the city to try to keep our residents here, to do as much as we can with them here. You know, if you talk to other county, city people in relationships like that, they don't always have the same relationship. And I know that our staff can pick up the phone, speak directly to the City of London, and work directly with them to make sure that the needs of our residents are being adequately looked after. So thank you for that. Thank you again for coming. I'll look for one more call for questions. Nothing? Great. Thank you again. It was great to see you again for making the trip out to Lucan.
No problem. Thanks very
Great.
much for having us and the rest of your meeting.
So with that, I'll just ask for a mover and a seconder to receive that presentation for information, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Hodgins. All in favor? And that's carried. Our second delegation tonight is our friends from Dillon Consulting, Jason Johnson and Andrea Winter, and I'll ask them, they're making their way to the speaker's desk now. And we have an update on our asset management plan. As they get settled, I will thank them for coming tonight and certainly appreciate the time that you're going to give us. And I'll turn it over to you.
So I'm just going to start with a brief introduction. First of all, Jason and I wanted to start off with thanking both the administration and council for viewing your concerns with respect to the previous presentation. And one of the things that we value most at Dillon is the clients. And we're nobody without a client. And so I wanted to express why Jason and I are here tonight. Jason and I are both partners at Dillon, but we're also the people who probably know Lucan Biddulph best. I think I went to kindergarten here. I don't know how many years ago in this room. So we know it well, and it's changed a little bit since the 1980s. Yeah, it was. But we really wanted to say that you are extremely important to us, and we valued the feedback that you provided. And tonight, we are going to provide high-level answers back to the primary questions as we understood them. And we are working directly with the individuals at the township to work on the updates to the plan that will make it the valuable living document that you need for the next few years. And that we are here if there's any questions either tonight or in the weeks ahead. So you may think of something tomorrow or the day after. Jason and I are both directly available for that. And we're going to move through what some of the key questions are, but that we just really wanted to start with that. And then I had one other piece of, I guess, one of my predecessors always told me, eat fresh crow instead of old crow, so I'll eat the fresh crow. So the first thing we do want to say before we talk about anything in the report, we acknowledge that there were some, I would say, completely inappropriate comments at the last presentation about why your report wasn't received on time. And I'm going to own that. And my role at Dillon is to lead all of the civil engineers in the company. And it was disrespectful to you to say that it was because we couldn't hire staff. That is not why the report took as long as it did. There was a lot of analysis on the data, et cetera. But the key thing is we didn't communicate well. And so moving forward, that is something that we own and we need to do better. And so that's why I said directly, call either of us. We are here at any time to work with you. And we own that that was a completely inappropriate comment, and we apologize for the concerns that were raised.
Well, just before Jason, you take over, I will thank you for that. Certainly, we don't need to go back 10 steps, but the both of you being here tonight, I think says a lot. And we do appreciate you eating the fresh crow. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. So again, this is just going to be, it's not a long presentation, but is sort of meant to address some of the concerns that we believe council and staff had, and hopefully this will address some of that and provide some context and additional background information. So the first slide we have here, I just wanted to do a quick comparison between the 2022 asset management update compared to the 2025 plan. So in 2022, that update was required to meet OREG 58817, the phase 3 requirements. So that focused on an asset inventory as well as current levels of service. At that time in 2022 dollars, the total value of assets in the township was approximately 279.9 million. And in that calendar year, the reinvestment rate was 1.1%. I will note that in 2022, the reinvestment rate was actually closer to 1.5%, but that's including funding and grants. And although that's a critical element for funding with small municipalities, it's something we feel is we don't want to include as a given in your plan. Otherwise, that just creates an inherent risk because it's not a guarantee. So I just wanted to make that point that with the funding, it was about 1.5%. Without the grants, it was 1.1. So for the 2025 update, this plan now achieves the final phase 4 compliance with the reg. This plan introduces proposed levels of service and financial needs. The estimated total value of assets in 2025 was approximately 327.35 million. And the current reinvestment rate, again, excluding grants, is 0.6%. I will note that the 327 million is the combination of inflation, but as well, your plan is much more detailed. And so we've included a lot more detailed information. As an example, we did a lot of work on your buildings and we did some building condition assessments. And so as opposed to those being point assets with a dollar value attributed to them, they're now broken down, say, instead of one asset, it might be 25 assets, and there's a lot more detail on each of those individual items. So windows, roofing, mechanical, as an example. And now that your plan is at that level of detail, some of those assets are actually worth more. And so that's part of the reason that this has gone up. I wanted to provide the pie graphs. I know you can't read the text in the bottom, but I thought that this was a really important piece of context that was missing from the previous presentation. So the graph on the left-hand side of the screen is basically just the sum of all your various categories of assets. So the largest one, I think, is the green, which is water. And then you'd have roads, wastewater, parks, rec, that type of thing. The graph in the middle is basically the same thing, except for 2025. So, all the slices of pie are slightly different, but this would total the 327.35 million. The important thing that I wanted to highlight is the graph to the right is basically the state of all of that infrastructure. So the state of that $328 million of assets the township owns. And what I want to highlight is what's in green. So you'll see that almost 75% of that pie is green, and that's the rating of very good. So that's the highest rating that we have amongst your assets. And so I just wanted to, as we're talking about goals and targets to reach for, I want to note that your current assets, almost 75% of them are in very good condition. So, which is either new or very close to new. So, next slide. This is, again, some context I think that was possibly missing from the previous presentation. This was really just to drive home how much the township should be targeting to spend annually, not necessarily to fix what you own versus waiting for it fails and then replacing it. So right now, the industry standard is between about 1.5% to 3%. And that's the standard to main infrastructure in a state of good repair for municipalities. But we know the current state of Ontario is only approximately 1%. And so we've included three sort of municipalities in Ontario kind of for comparison. So you can see the replacement costs of the total assets. You can see that, you know, where they're at in terms of their actual reinvestment and where they're at in terms of the target. And you can see, you know, not unlike the township, the target versus the actual, there's a fair discrepancy there. But again, the target would be absolutely a perfect situation, perfect scenario, and honestly is never going to be like a realistic, you know, you're replacing basically as soon as something fails, you have the money in the bank to replace it. That's not really realistic. So
And it reflects that everything fails at its expected average lifespan, which also isn't the case, which is why your proactive maintenance of your infrastructure is so important, and your analysis to make sure that you're replacing the appropriate things on an annual basis. So you'll never need to do the 3.3 in a year, but you need to plan for that it could happen in a single year. And then it could be because you have something that's really large that needs to be replaced in that year. The other piece to note here is that we say that the current state in Ontario is 1%. That's your local municipalities. We also know that it is realistic to expect that a local municipality is going to need to apply for grants. And so you will regularly invest more than the 1%. But 1% is a lot of money when you're thinking of your $323 million of assets. You're still investing a significant dollar value. And so you have to spend that money wisely, which is why you need to do that analysis on an annual basis. And there will be some years that something really large comes up that is going to throw your averages off. So the plan is based on average lifespans, but the reality is what we have seen, Jason and I, through all our years in engineering, something fails early or something failed late. And you have to go with the average and just understand to plan for the average, but then execute on the crucial infrastructure.
yeah, absolutely. And this is just a target. Working towards that target is what's going to allow you to, you know, spend wisely on an annual basis. And like I said, not necessarily wait for an asset to fail and then have the full replacement cost at that time.
And we are not proposing here that you need to instantly switch to a goal of switching to a 3.3. What we wanted to state is that you're at a 0.6 right now. You're maintaining very strong infrastructure, that if your average local, not competitors, but your similar communities are all aiming around that. Increase a little bit each year to maintain for the future, because the reality is there's a lot of municipalities similar to yourself. We started building a lot of sewers in the 1970s, and they only have a certain lifespan, and we're not going to repair them all at the exact same lifespan. So you will, over time, need to plan a little bit more per year, but not in an immediate future.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and maybe one last point on that is I feel that council or staff maybe had the impression that compared to the previous update, all of a sudden there was a bit of a landslide in condition or you know, like you weren't doing enough or what happened in the last 3 years. And really that's not the case. Like I said, it's based on the basis of how much better and more detailed your plan is. So like I said, we spent a lot of effort a year ago doing detailed building condition assessments as just one example. And like I said, so most of your major building parks and recs, like the arena as an example, would have been listed previously through PSAB as just like a one singular asset. based on the replacement year, and there wasn't any condition assessments associated with that. Now that we've done that, that single asset is likely broken down into 25.
Yeah, we have the chillers, we have
It-
all the components of the pool, everything, and there's more infrastructure in this plan.
Yes,
to
and it's
conclude.
all not going to require replacement or rehab at the same time. So it's sort of all over the map, but it's not a bad thing. It's just it's a very realistic snapshot of all of your infrastructure now.
So go next slide.
Yep. So this was another one I feel like that needs a little bit of context, and I think maybe caused some confusion. This road safety audit that we did was I think it's about a 200-page report. And if we were to exclude it from the asset management plan, I think the asset management plan would only be about 140 pages. So that's what we're going to do. So it won't be an appendix. It'll just be a standalone report, but the final version of the asset management plan will highlight some of the top projects that were recommended through this study. But I just wanted to highlight kind of what the purpose of this study and kind of why we did it. So in July of 2024, we completed a road safety audit. The audit was completed to assess and identify road safety concerns while producing a priority list of deficiencies. And this was for the gravel rural roads only. So the summary of our findings was that there's approximately 95 kilometers of gravel roads in fair to good condition. The physical hazards we noticed was there's steep ditch slopes, narrow roads, sightline obstructions. In terms of asset gaps, there was a number of exposed culverts. Basically, the main recommendations from this report, like I said, will be included in your financial roadmap. In addition to completing this study while we were out there, we also took the opportunity to do a condition assessment and survey in all of your rural signage as well as your small diameter culverts. So these aren't required per se to that level of detail, but you do have that information. We were there already, and now this is something that you have in citywide. Currently, probably in your plan, something as small as this would just be covered under like an operational cost. But now you have in citywide the ability to track it like literally to that level of detail. And the only thing I was going to highlight is one of the top areas we had identified from that road safety report, which will be included in the asset management plan, is the Fallon line at Corsie. So that's if everybody can kind of picture, that's where you go past the wastewater treatment plant before you get to Corsie. It's probably about 100-foot drop to the west side there, or I guess it'd be the south side. And so again, just highlighting, all of those road safety concerns. There was a number of items that we recommended as potential, like there's no set solution. So could be a combination of steel beam guide rail, additional signage, pavement markings, things like that, all in an effort just to improve roadside safety. So hopefully pulling that report helps kind of clarify things, although we will reference some of the main recommendations in the final capital plan analysis.
Another thing that Jason and I noted while we reviewed the report again in the last week was that if we put ourselves in your place as a council, it's very hard to read what the key recommendations are. So there's a lot of chapters that tell you a lot of high level information, but at the end of the day, it doesn't give you a quick summary of these are the immediate needs for this level of asset. So in the final report that you will receive, we are going to configure it, and there will both be an executive summary with the priority projects, as well as in the chapters, it will identify what the most immediate needs. So you don't have to flip to an appendix, go through a chart, try to figure out what's what. It's going to summarize it. It should have been there in the first place. Jason and I both tried to figure out what was the priority, and we were also going through that chart at the end. So this will be a change in the final report. So for tonight, we wanted to identify what some of the key projects are, and what we wanted to iterate here is that The key conclusions are what was in the asset management plan that identified some of the things that needed to be addressed were already the things that you were aware of. So that's a really good news story because it means that the work you're doing is in alignment with what where the focus should be. And it does help you then prepare for designing early enough, tendering early enough, and applying for grants early enough to help you budget and get to where you need to be. It also allows you to put the reserves in place earlier than when the projects are needed so that you're in the right position at the right time. So in 2026, the key projects that should have been on the executive summary are the ones that are now on the slide, which do outline some snowplow and fire equipment. We did note that there are some key items in fleet that need replacements. And then there are the roads, which, good news story, again, we're on top of it. So Nicolai Ave, as well as Wellington Street and Nagel Drive. And then the treatment plant, which everyone is aware of, is in the system. And then looking forward, the other really good news story is that 2027, you are also aligned with where you need to be. And we were able to look at the combination of assessments, and there's some things there. Now, I will note, you're still going to, in spite of whatever money you spend, you will end up with some infrastructure that will always show as poor or at the low end. And that's okay. Because if you think of it, I'll give you a direct example. If you have something that is extremely low traffic, it's a dead end street, it's got a sidewalk on it that maybe sees 3 pedestrians a year, you shouldn't be prioritizing that over downtown Main Street Lucan or Main Street Granton. You need to fix those sidewalks at a much higher priority. So it's okay to let some of your less used infrastructure or less critical infrastructure go to a lower state eventually before you address it, while you maintain the criticality of the higher used infrastructure. And moving forward, in addition to anything that we can do as far as predictions, etc., climate change is going to be a factor there. So there's going to be some infrastructure that maybe you think doesn't look as good, but we would recommend as engineers that you keep that infrastructure because you need to address something that may be more affected by your next large rainfall or large snowfall. And that is more critical in nature than the aesthetic appeal of some other piece of infrastructure. So that's where we put our ethics background and our engineering, the art of engineering, as we call it, into play to figure out what the priority should be. And so that's why these reports are plans. They are not prescriptive reports of you must, because it just needs to get you in a plan of thinking of those pieces of infrastructure. So we thought that it was useful to give you a high level summary of what the key projects we identified through the plan were.
I think this is our last slide. So basically just a summary of our findings and next steps. So as I mentioned, the majority of your assets are in good or very good condition, approximately 80%. Small municipalities in Ontario are facing the exact same financial pressures, and really the goal here is to strategically and gradually close the gap going forward beyond the planning period of this AMP. This is not, you're gonna, get to it overnight, and nor is it realistic that you would ever get to the 3.3 or 3.6. Again, like Andrea said, this is just a plan. It's strategic. It's not prescriptive. It's meant to be a roadmap to help guide you and your journey. So we're proposing to revise the asset management plan based on tonight's discussion and the questions and concerns raised by staff, and that will be presented for council adoption or approval at the next council meeting, which I understand is to be February 3rd of this year.
Okay, thank you for that. Before I open up for questions, I certainly like the direction that we're headed with the asset management plan. I can already see, some changes from what was presented prior to Christmas. And I like the executive summary. I like the sound like to be more user friendly. Just knowing what the asset management plan covers there are residents that will actually turn to that document. So to make it user-friendly for our residents is also very helpful. So really pleased with that. I do like the separation of the rural road safety audit as well. I am a strong proponent of those audits, and I think Councillor Hodgins is as well. But those audits are incredibly important for small municipalities. So I'm happy that we have one, because I can say, with my Good Roads hat on, that not every municipality has those. And that's information that is key. Roads don't necessarily need to be rebuilt. Major things don't need to happen, but there are little things that can be done to make our roads safer. And having that audit will certainly help Jeff's department be able to kind of chip away at those things as we can. So really appreciate kind of the steps that have been taken that you presented so far tonight. Questions and comments from council? Councillor Regan.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. No, it just seems that the priorities seem to be well identified by staff, and thank you for the report. I just wanted to ask about one of the slides of your pie charts. Just when you're talking about assets being very poor or in good shape, I'm just wondering, what's the standard of measurement? What's the criteria that you use for that? I know for roads, I know how that's
It depends on the asset, and there are different types of ratings for all of them, but in general, they all go from a scale of 0 to 10 or 0 to 100. And anything that is in that A range when you're in public school, that 80 to 100 is amazing, right? And that's newer infrastructure and it's pretty good. We use a similar type of rating for any type of asset. So if you understand roads, that one's easy because you can look at it and you can see the pothole or you can see the alligatoring. But when you look at a pump, we might look at how many hours are on it. We may look at if it's showing any external wear, how much maintenance you've had to put into it is also an indicator of how well it's running, what the efficiency is, etc. And then that will affect its rating. And what we try to do at the end of the day amongst the plan is we try to equal out those criticalities or risk of that infrastructure and get them into a similar rating that helps us understand fair versus poor versus very good. Right. So they're all slightly different, but they really take into effect. We try to use people that is their expertise and their understanding of that infrastructure to make those critical assessments.
all right. Oh, that's good. Okay, thank you. No, that's appreciate that. Yes, that's it.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Hodgins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. Just looking forward to the future. We've gone through these like deadlines and updates to the plan, and what does it look like for the foreseeable future? Are there additional regulatory updates that have to be done? Or is this something we're going to be updating the plan annually, or just what does that look like moving forward?
I can take it first. I'll maybe take a first stab at that. So I would say this is a living document. And so like we recommend to all of our clients, there probably should be some work done as it relates to whether it's an update or additional condition assessment that you're allocating some money every year to advance this plan. Obviously, you don't have to do condition assessments on your roads or sewers every single year, but Jeff has a program we've set up where he's maybe doing a quarter of the town or half the town one year and the rest the next is terms of CCTV. I think we have a target of trying to do the street scan with the sidewalks and the roads every 5 years. Same thing, like last year was the first year we did all of the detailed building condition assessments of all those buildings. At some point, again, it's a bit of judgment, but it'll make sense likely to do another round of that and update that saying, okay, all these high level items have been checked off the list and maybe it's time to update that
So
condition
there's not a
assessment.
prescribed form that says you must do it by this July after you've got your plan in place. However, you have to show that you've kept it current. And so I have full faith in the discussions we've had with the staff here that we will be keeping it up to date. And the other key thing here is that if you're finding that you're replacing a certain type of infrastructure typically before what the estimated lifespan would be, that's where you should be focusing some of your updates in your plan to make sure that that infrastructure, maybe the useful life adjusts, et cetera. And again, that will vary municipality by municipality. It will vary within your municipality because you have such a diverse set of assets. So something that's in a growing community may deteriorate a little bit quicker because there's just so much more type of traffic, including construction traffic, et cetera, that but then you might have something that is a rural road that's been there for 100 years and has the same infrastructure, and those culverts have such low amount of farm traffic and weight loadings on them that they last longer than they're expected. So that's one of the things that your staff will have to be watching on a regular basis. And that's where we are always here to support to say, okay, yeah, that is a good trend that you should probably focus a bit more. But through the discussions we've had with staff, we are confident that the plan you have will be in place for a few years, and you do not have to do like an annual update to this plan. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think we have a really good asset management plan, like the document itself. I think there's been a ton of work gone into this, and thank you, Dylan Consulting, for all your work on this over the years, developing this. So it's a great document there. Something I wonder about, and I asked about it at the previous presentation, was about asset management integration into like everything we do at the municipality. Linking it to our budget. We talked about the reinvestment rate and where we're at and where we should be. And just, I guess, how can we sort of, I guess, strengthen how we practice asset management within the organization?
So you've made it through the mayor.
Thank you.
You've made some very strong progress in the last few years on this front. You have better tracking systems within the municipality to do that now. The key of how you keep it moving forward is that every time a project's done, that your systems are updated. So your citywide tracking system needs to be updated so that it's current, and then that will help you with your financial planning. You need to, on a regular basis, make sure your GIS system is updated, because as we move forward, one of the things that we're seeing is that technology is so prevalent that staff in the field will have that GIS system with them on a tablet on a regular basis type of thing, right? So you need to make sure that any information a person's looking at is the current information. And so it's just at the end of each project, no matter how big or small it is, that we have to make sure that it is part of the practice and the standard operating practice to update the systems you have. And then that will automatically help you update your financial outlooks too, because it'll show that's already been replaced, it's no longer a problem, or this one has been maintained in high condition, doesn't require further work. The condition assessments will be there.
Yeah, and if I could just add to that as well, like I think one of the things that we discovered just through our detailed review recently is the importance of when you guys are going to do new condition assessments, how critical it is, and this is something that I missed, but I should have been telling you guys that you want to maintain your existing asset IDs, and that's really important. So like when you go out to have condition assessments, it's almost like you want to be providing some of your GIS information ahead of time, because you don't want the companies that do those condition assessments coming up with their own naming convention. And that's where we've seen a little bit of the confusion and kind of come across that. I also foresee working together to better understand the ability of your citywide software. I think we've noticed some discrepancies between basically the shape files, which are the attributes that produce the GIS images. Well, it really is more or less the same information in citywide. It should be the same IDs. It should be all the same language. So we've noticed some discrepancies there. So certainly going forward, it seems simple, but it's a really simple thing to mess up, I guess. So it's like, you might have one new street constructed this year and there's 5 new sanitary manholes. Well, it's really important that you go to your original naming convention and you're going to the next number so that you don't have 2 sanitary manhole 100s. And so you're adding new unique IDs every time you're adding a new piece of road. And it's really important that you stick to that naming convention, and then there's consistency across like what we're keeping up to date on your behalf, but really that's the same information that feeds into citywide.
So, but I think you're set up for it.
Absolutely.
100%
Oh,
set
yeah.
up for it already. So as far as the maintaining going forward, it's using the systems you have in place.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if, Madam Mayor, if I can add, and that's one of our concerns in the office and in the departments is trying to make sure that we are keeping up with the day-to-day operations and making sure those assessments get updated into citywide. And you know, it could be any sort of program, but we're using the citywide program. And so that is one of our discussions right now in the office, is how and who's going to do that and how that's going to get done, because it's critical to keep that updated. We've got it started. We've got a bunch of the, you know, facilities and buildings and pumps and everything's out there has been assessed. Now it's our turn to try to implement something in-house and how to keep that up. And I think through the budget process, we've talked about, you know, there might be another staff added. I think this is a real could be an area where we're going to have to do more with asset updating and that sort of thing. So we'll still do, like, I'm still planning on doing CTV, you know, videoing. We're still going to plan on assessments, like pavement assessments, sidewalk assessments over the years. Those are sort of things that we're going to bring some people in to help us with that. But we have to come up with what we're going to do inside and with our own staff.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? So just on that note, I mean, I think, you know, what was presented to us, like, is overwhelming. I mean, like, most of us around the horseshoe don't work in that every day, right? So it's a large document to try to understand it. And, you know, kind of walking away from it, just hoping that it's actually appropriate for Lucan Biddulph. And, you know, Jason, we talked about the pie charts and the change, you know, from 2022 to 2025, and how it is a much more detailed plan. But then, so we have this plan, the living document. How are we actually going to be able to do what's expected of us? You know, I guess in some respect, I look at it, I think, can we even maintain the current reinvestment of 0.6 now that it has grown the way that it has? I don't know whether I've got a question in there, but I just want to make sure that it's the appropriate plan, you know, for our community.
Absolutely. And one comment I wanted to make, I guess, that towards Jaden's question, just about the viability and moving forward, like in my time that I've been here, you know, I've worked with a number of different public works directors, and I know I've physically seen the transition from the public works managers having an idea of what's required in their head to transitioning to developing an asset management plan, adding more and more detail to it, to now you're at a point where, you know, this is oversimplifying things, but at the push of a button, it's spitting out a list of capital projects. And that's what's basically forming the beginning of budget discussions and discussions that I have with Jeff. And that's really what the whole idea of this regulation was meant to do. And I think that you guys are very much in a good position now to go through.
I think the extra detail actually helps you spit out a better, well-rounded list that you can then consider. So each year you're going to look at it, and then your staff will go and say, we went out and double checked these specific ones. We're now recommending this as part of your budget deliberations. But by adding the additional, you know, you add your trail infrastructure, et cetera, active transportation is so important when you're growing communities. It's good that you have that in your plan now, because it is going to be kept in your mind, whether it was your top of mind topic or not, it's part of the consideration every year. So I don't think you have to worry as individual counselors about, am I individually keeping track of all of it? It's the fact that the plan is set up to be able to allow you to make educated decisions amongst a priority of things. And you don't have to know all of the answers individually, and that, but your staff will be able to help you give educated input on why something could be a priority. And that's why they're more robust, even though it might feel overwhelming as a pile of paper or a digital document. It is something you can search through quickly to get to where you need to be.
Appreciate that. On the reinvestment, and you're gonna have to refresh me. What will be the target that's going to be presented? Or I guess, do we have to wait until February
Yeah,
3rd for that?
We will keep a similar, it will maintain a similar number to that 3.
Mhm.
And I'm going to explain a scenario why that really helps you. Having something like that also, when you then go for grant money, etc., you don't want to be at the level of what you need to be, because you're a small municipality. That's not real. You can, you just can't, with the infrastructure you have and the tax base you have, be at that level. So having a gap is actually a good thing in that type of situation, because it shows that you know that you realistically have this, but you can't get to that immediately. So you're going to need some help from other programs, etc. And so we've looked at it again. It will adjust slightly based on some of the revisions and some of the things we have, but it's still going to be in that 3-ish range is what our analysis, Jason and
Yep.
I figured out this week.
Yep.
And then I guess part of the work that, like Dylan, that you guys are doing to support our staff. So, okay, we're at 0.6, the target's 3. We understand we're not going to get to the 3 tomorrow. Are you working with our staff so that, because you said about incrementally year over year, can we go from 0.6 to 0.75? Can we go to 0.6 to 1? Are you working with staff to kind of develop that plan as well, or give them pointers, advice
We
as to how
started the
to?
discussions, and we're here to support as they have questions. I am not an accountant by trade, so I would actually recommend that you use your accountant to then come with us with, what if I tried this, or what if I go this? What do you think from an engineering perspective we can do in that, and work together as a team? So I would say we aren't going to necessarily give the advice, but we will work as a team together.
Mhm. Mhm. If I can add, I know I've had conversations with staff before about your budgeting process is unique in the township, and the spending is, you know, is sometimes it's not always consistent. And I would say what this plan is saying is it's always going to suggest you're putting some money towards either maintenance or additional condition assessments, when maybe that would have been maybe not most top of mind previously. And the concern was more, is something in such a condition that it's either going to fail or cause a concern with health and safety, something like that. So in years when you might say, well, geez, we don't really have many infrastructure projects this year, it would be okay, but we still need to spend money towards, you know, advancing our asset system. So what should we do this year? And it might not be a capital project, but you know, it could be something like, well, we're going to put this in this reserve, and that's going to help us out with, you know, next year's shave and pave program or something like that. Yeah.
And Jason and I also had a long discussion this week that was about, you have to remember, you've built assets for over 100 years, right? But you've only had an asset management program for like 13 in the province, right? So give yourself the benefit of the fact that you built things well before you ever started to figure out how to maintain them. And now you're in a better position thinking about how to maintain them, because the old system would have been, wait till it dies, wait till it's completely broken, now we'll fix it. And the reality is that's always the most expensive option. So it's better to do the actual management of your assets. So that will help you moving forward.
Madam Mayor, if I may, the 0.6 and the 3 are the overall average. And we do have a breakdown in the different asset categories. And I think even through our last budget in the fall, we did highlight that particularly the equipment. Yeah, we're behind on the equipment. So there is, Catherine has done a good job on highlighting some of the areas. And then with this update, we can look at some of the other areas that may need to be addressed, such as maybe we do need more in the construction reserves. Maybe we are ahead on the wastewater when we go through the funding that we're going to be going through in the next couple of years. But this is where the goals are 0.6 and 3, but there is a breakdown inside the asset management plan for the different asset categories.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, thank you very much again for coming. It was good to see you in person and do appreciate the attention to our asset management plan. Okay. With that, I will ask for a mover and a seconder to receive that report and the revisions for information, please. Councillor Hodgins and Councillor Regan. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay. All right, we've got 2 sets of minutes in front of us. The regular council meetings minutes from December 16th and the special council meeting minutes from December 19th. If nothing needs to be amended, good night. Then I would ask for a mover and a seconder to approve those minutes as circulated. Councillor Regan and Councillor Westman. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. On to the consent agenda. There's only a couple items on this, and I know that Councillor Hodgins had a question, I believe, on 9.1.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, I just wanted to ask, this is the inspection report for our water distribution system. And there was a couple items in there. There was a non-compliance and then some recommendations. And just wanted to ask through you to staff, if we have any plans, actions to take based on these recommendations. I saw there was some for some training or maybe some bylaws as well. So I just wanted to ask staff if we have any follow-up actions from that.
Yeah, and through the mayor, just to give an update on that. So we did look at those recommendations. I did have a meeting with Jacobs. And we are proposing 2 new bylaws to come to council, one on water usage and one on backflow prevention program is going to be, I've got the one developed already and we'll bring the other one to council as well. Jacobs is going to work on some of the recommended policy and procedures to make sure that they're written down. One of the things that the inspection did note that the work is being done, it has to be documented and properly, the documentation has to be better. So that's going to be addressed through procedures and guidelines. So that'll also happen. And we have talked about additional training. I think we all are aware of the boiled water advisory that happened, and we've already had staff take some extra courses in conjunction with that. So we are following up on this inspection, and the items were taken very seriously.
Okay, is that good?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, were there any other questions on the items that were received? Okay, seeing none, then if I can get a mover and a seconder to receive those items on the consent agenda for information, please. Councillor Regan and Councillor Hodgins. All in favor? That's carried. Correspondence, we received a number of resolutions, yep, Thank you. Thank you for that. And again, Councillor Hodgins, speak to the one on the improvements for Highway 1117.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. So item 10.1, there was two resolutions attached, one from the municipality of Huron Shores and one from the township of Narren and Hyman, regarding highway improvements to these northern highways, 11 and 17. And I would like to move a motion to support the second item in 10.2, the resolution from the township of Narren and Hyman. And it's just about, these northern highways 17 and 11. Madam Mayor spoke about the tragedy that even impacted our municipality at the outset of the meeting. There's a lot of good reasons why these roads should be improved for safety. So I think it's important that we support this resolution. And I'd like to move it as such.
So, and then that the supporting resolution and obviously the documentation be circulated to the appropriate. Okay, so in anticipation of this, Tina has put together that the Lucan Biddulph Council supports the December 17th, 2025 resolution of the Township of Narren Hyman regarding modernizing Highways 17 and 11 to improve safety, reduce closures, strengthen supply chain reliability for mining, forestry, agriculture, tourism, manufacturing, and enhance national resilience and emergency response capacity, and that the supporting resolution and originating documentation be circulated to the Prime Minister of Canada, the Premier of Ontario, Minister of Transport Canada, the Ontario Minister of Transportation's local MPs and MPPs, FNOM, NOMA, AMO, FCM, and Roma. Is that good?
Sounds great.
Okay. So moved by Councillor Hodgins and seconded by Councillor Regan. That's great. Any discussion on that? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you for that, Councillor Hodgins. Were there any other resolutions that anybody wanted to speak to? Okay, with that, if I can get a, so I guess it would just be 10.2.
Yes.
Right? 10.2. Okay, so a mover and a seconder that we receive and file correspondence items 10.2 through 10.4. Mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Regan and Councillor Westman. All in favor? And that's carried. On to committee reports. There is the just the membership report associated to the Blue Water. Obviously, Deputy Mayor is not here, but he could answer any questions at the next meeting, or if there's anything that came from that, I'm sure if you emailed him, he would be able to help you with that. Anything from CEDC?
We have nothing right now, Madam Mayor, but we do have a meeting for the end of February, and I'll have a report for council after that.
Nothing from Lake Huron, nothing from our fire boards, ABCA, nothing, Parks and Recreation,
Our next meeting is January 29th.
and Trails and Connectivity, nothing. Okay, staff reports. We've got one from the clerk's office, but before I go, Tina, do you have anything, Ron? No? Okay, Tina.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor and council members. The report in front of you is an annual update on activities taking place in the clerk's department in the previous year. I won't go into detail about each as it's all there in front of you, but it's a snapshot of the data, history, projects, and ongoings within the clerk's department, including records, planning, parking, animal control, etc.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions on the report in front of us? Nothing? Okay, if I can get a mover and a seconder to receive that report for information. Councillor Regan and Councillor Hodgins, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Finance, Catherine. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So tonight we have another report in regards to the 2026 budget. In the report, there's some background of our pathway to where we are at this point, with most recently having our presentation to council on December the 16th meeting. And from that meeting, there are a couple items left to review or to have more consideration or thinking of in regards to the operating budget. And those two items are the additional staff and a method to raise funds for the fire vehicle replacement. And then, so after thinking about this and getting some comments from staff and council, come up with the following options. So option A is as presented on December 16th. So I won't go over that. That's as the budget stands right now. Option B was to reduce the additional staff to $25,000, but keep the same level of contribution from the tax stabilization reserve. Then that would put the tax rate increase for operations at 3.62% versus 4.43%. And then to raise the additional amount for fire vehicle replacement to have an additional tax rate increase of 2% to start raising the funds for that. So those two added together would give you the total tax rate increase of 5.62%. Option C is along the same lines, but it provides additional, reduce the additional staff by half. And then that the tax rate increase would be 3.82%. And then propose the additional tax rate increase of 2.5% for the fire vehicle replacement. And those two things would result in a total tax rate increase of 6.32%. And I provide a summary in the report that's a table that's kind of easier to read that's laid out there. Option B and C would reduce the amount in the budget for additional staff, but with these options, senior staff is required to further review the staff requirements and provide more information to council in the near future. And the reduction, the idea of that is still allow some money in there that allow for either a consultant to do the review or to allow a part-time person or at least some help from at some point in the year or for a portion of the year once the review is completed. And then in regards to the how to raise funds for the fire vehicle replacement, a special tax rate increase would be preferred to allow the burden to be based on assessment rather than a flat fee per property roll. And that was a lot of the discussion that we had at the last meeting. This could start at 2% or 2.5%, at least at the start, and continue over the 4 years. But of course, we would review that every budget cycle, and each council can decide if that's a good approach to, if that's the same approach to continue in the future. So that's included in option B and C. In regards to this, we know and we heard that communication for this amount to the residents would be important. So we're going to look at all the different ways we can do that and do that as many ways as possible in all communications, such as a newsletter or some kind of budget summary in different forms. And then if we're looking at how we can show that on the actual tax bill that goes out in August, but we certainly want to communicate that sooner than in August and put notes in with the tax bill, those kinds of things. So once, and if and when the budget is approved, then we can look at those measures of communication of where we're at in the short term. And so people can plan for what they might see in August. So, so with these options, staff would recommend option B. And what comes down to is the total tax rate that would keep it comparable to what our neighbors are doing as far as that their tax rate increases. And so if option B was chosen for the average residential property, which is assessed, so anyone assessed at $280,000 from residential, would result in an increase of $111 for the year. And that's broken down between $72 to go to operations as an increase and $39 for fire capital vehicle replacement. So in the recommended motion, I mentioned, I put in the recommended motion, the option B, but of course council can have a discussion and can edit that. In addition, if we go with the tax rate increase and regardless of which way we want, if we want to raise funds for fire capital
I would like to have a separate reserve set up for that. So that's the reason for that part of the motion. And then so the 5.62 approves our operating budget, so that I would also require or would accept a motion to approve our capital budget as well, that was presented on December 16th, not the 13th. Sorry, there's a little typo there. And then that was, of course, that was presented to council, full council in October. And then we had some changes that were highlighted in the December 16th meeting. So I mentioned that report there, and it's also attached. And then the list is just to refresh your memory, to have it at your hand when you're reviewing the report. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Catherine. And thank you for, again, all the work that you've done to get us to this point. Comments or questions, clarification from council? Councillor Regan.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Catherine. First of all, I would be supportive of option B. I also like the fact that we're getting the information out to folks right away with respect to the fire services vehicle, the replacement vehicle. I think that's very important that people know that. I was just wondering, and I don't know whether maybe Ron's best to answer this or maybe Catherine, but with respect to the additional staff, I'm just wondering if with option B, we're going to allow for $25,000 for that. Option C allows for 37.5. I'm just wondering at what point during the year do we think we'll know whether or not, once that review is done, I don't know whether we're doing consultant or we're going to allow to let department heads figure that out, but at what point do we figure we'll know if we would acquire additional staff that is a full-time, part-time position? I just didn't know if there was a timeline on that. The reason I'm asking is that if we limit ourselves to 25 and we do decide that we do determine that there is staff need, what kind of position would that put us in budget wise down the road?
So through the mayor to Councillor Regan, there is no definitive timeline attached to this.
Okay.
My intention is to get this dealt with in the sort of the last of the first quarter into the second quarter of the year. And I'll be bringing another report back to council before whether we go for a consultant or whether we go in a different direction. That's another report that will come to council.
Right. Okay, so okay, thank you. So, and again, I said, I like the fact that we're going to advertise this very well and everybody's going to know. So I would be supportive of staff's recommendation for option B. Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? Councillor Hodgins?
Yeah, I just echo the comments from Councillor Regan. I'm supportive of option B as well. I think it's a good balance, and I think carrying that smaller amount for the additional staff, just recognizing that every amount that will be higher is going to drive up the number. So I think I'm happy with option B, and I support the recommendation.
Thank you for that. Any other comment? Councillor Westman?
Yeah, I'm kind of torn, but I would be inclined to agree that option B is probably our safest bet at this point. I would like to hear what our deputy mayor has to say as well. I know what his take on it has been, but he's in his absence. I think it'd be pertinent to hear from him as well.
Well, he anticipated that maybe somebody might ask that question. And no, we don't have him on Zoom. But he did speak with Catherine over the Christmas break. And he has spoken to me, and it was his suggestion to go the tax levy route, the tax rate route for the fire protection. And he is comfortable with bringing the 75 down to the 25 and breaking it down like that. And just keeping everything here, he's supportive of. And he's passed that on to Catherine. He's passed that on to me. He liked the idea of keeping those one-time costs still coming out of tax rate stabilization. So at least that helps bring down the rate a bit. So, okay. Okay. I know last week when we spoke, Catherine, and you were still didn't know how the emergency services tax would look like. Are you able to break it out on the tax bill, or will it just be the one amount that shows up when a resident receives their bill?
My understanding is that we can show the separation. We just haven't done that before, so I wanted to test it and make sure that we're comfortable with that approach. But we're gonna do every effort that we can to make sure we can show that the way you intend, or at least somehow communicate, provide that with the bill, and we're going to communicate regardless in ahead of time. But I believe the functionality is there. We just haven't used it yet.
Yeah, no, and understand and totally understand that. This is obviously what we've said throughout the whole budget process. This is something new we've never done. So certainly understand that every effort will be made. Because again, one of the things the deputy mayor has said, and I think that we're all in agreement, is because the fire services tax is something new. We want to make sure that we're hearing from our residents how they feel about that. And I think we as counselors have to be prepared for the good, the bad, and the ugly when that comes to it. And I just think the clearer we can make it and the more transparent is what is definitely what we want. Because certainly if it is received positively, that's great feedback, and that's good to know as this council and future councils go through the budget process. If it's received negatively, then maybe it will cause our next budget cycle to be looked at a little differently. So just as long as we do the communication and we get it as clear as possible, I think that's key. I will note, I just said to Ron, one of our neighbors passed their budget, I believe last night, and they actually have a 1%. And now it's towards capital, but part of their tax rate is just a bit over 6. But 1% of that will go specifically to capital, a capital reserve that they can start putting money away. So that's one of our neighbors. So yeah.
Sorry, I did. Do they have a communication plan with that? I just be.
I believe they're working on it.
They're working on it. Okay, all right.
Okay. So again, other neighbors are looking at other ways to be able to come up with cash. Okay, so with that, we do have the recommended motion in front of us. Catherine's walked us through it, and I would look for a mover and a seconder for the recommended motion in front of us. Councillor Hodgins and Councillor Regan. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Your second report, Catherine.
Okay, the second report is just to get, we have a transfer payment agreement that we have to sign, so this is just providing that authorization to do that. And it's for the fire protection grant that we were successfully applied for in the amount of $33,360, and to go towards 3 different initiatives that were applied for. So we got the full amount that we had asked for, gear drying cabinet for the Lucan Biddulph Fire Department, some extra bunker gear for the Biddulph Blanchard Fire Department, and a decontamination kit for the Biddulph Blanchard Fire Department. So so these funds must be committed by the end of March and spent by the end of the year. So once we get this transfer payment agreement signed by both parties, then they will transfer us the funds and we can proceed. So that's all this is about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions? Okay, seeing none, you've got the motion in front of us, and I'd look for a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan. All in favor? And that's carried. Did you have anything else, Catherine?
just a reminder that water bills are due on the 16th. That's the end of this week. So if you haven't got it, let us know or find a way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. And I just, again, will just thank you and your staff and the rest of the senior staff in getting us through the budget process and being able to pass it at the beginning of January. So thank you very much. Well done. Well done. Jeff, did you have anything?
Madam Mayor, I do have one update for council. Tomorrow, we are doing test holes out by the Lucan wastewater treatment plant. So I'm going to be on site with staff. Aqua's going to be there. BM Ross is going to be there, and anybody who is going to bid on the expansion of the plant is also going to be there. So it's going to be an interesting review. There is 88 contractors that have taken plans out so far. So we may have trouble just parking out there. So
To say, do you need a shuttle?
so that's good news. The more interest in it, hopefully the bids come in well. So the test holes get dug tomorrow. So there will be Aqua and and also the county procurement are also going to be there. So any questions about the tender, the operations, the plant itself, we'll be able to answer some questions on site. Having said that, then the actual tender will close February 10th. And then it'll come to council at some point, and once we determine the proposals and figure all that out. So it's moving along.
That's very exciting. You should take a picture of like the crowd tomorrow or that's crazy. That's awesome. That's good. Well, it just shows, I think, obviously, that there are people anxious to work, right? So, Darcy, did you have anything?
I would just note to council that we do, not this weekend, but next weekend, the 23rd, 24th, 25th, we are hosting a Skate Ontario event at the arena. So there'll be skaters from all over Ontario coming. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday event. The Lucan Skating Club volunteers have been working very hard to prepare us, and it'll be a different atmosphere, but it'll be a lot of fun. So we're excited to host that event. That's again the 23rd, 24th, 25th.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I would say to anybody on council to try and go and see, because again, it's our facility being put on a bigger stage. So I'm happy to support the skating club with that. Lisa, anything from economic development? Nothing. Okay. Nothing new in other business. If you want to add anything to other business, let Tina know. I don't believe there's any notices of motion. Councillor comments. Councillor Regan.
Thank you very much. I just have one note, more public service announcement. Just so the Ontario law says now we have to have carbon monoxide detectors on each floor. I just want to remind people of this requirement. Very, very important. Could definitely save your life. So just wanted to make sure people are just aware of that.
Thank you very much. I believe that is being highlighted on our newsletter that is going out tomorrow. So, yeah. Any other councillor comments? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go to bylaws, and there are a number of bylaws in front of us. The first two are the ones, or the first one is the first bylaw that we always pass each year, and that's the interim tax levy bylaw. The next one has to do with authorizing our temporary borrowing. The third bylaw is our appointment bylaw. The fourth one is the Ontario Transfer Payment Agreement that Catherine spoke about. There's the Damon Drain bylaw that we talked about earlier in the meeting, and then our confirming bylaw. So the motion in front of us is that bylaws 05 2020. Okay. Because
that one just gets first and second. reading.
Okay, gotcha. So that, because it's the drainage one. See, I should have read this ahead of time. Okay, the bylaw 05/2026 be read a first and second time and be adopted. And that bylaws 01-2026 through 04-2026 and bylaw 06-2026 all be read first, second, and third and final time and be adopted. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Counselor Westman and Counselor Hodgins, all in favor? And that's carried. And our motion to adjourn at 8:03, a mover and a seconder, please. Counselor Regan and Counselor Westman,